Good morning. Good morning. Happy Saturday. Happy March 15th. It is St. Patrick's Day weekend, I think. So that's why I have my green on representing St. Patrick's out there, everybody. But good morning. I have a question. We're going to start this whole intro off with a question. So what does it really mean to heal, to grow, to transform your mindset and step into the best version of yourself, both personally and professionally? Well, today we're diving into just that. So, welcome back to another episode of the Inner Circle podcast where real estate meets real life. I'm your host, your homegirl, Jillian. And all month long, if you haven't noticed, I'm celebrating Women's History Month by highlighting powerhouse women in my inner circle who are making an impact in their industries, communities, and the world. And today's guest is absolutely no exception. I'm sitting down with Tiffany Stevens, who's a licensed clinical professional counselor, founder and CEO of Graceful Growth Counseling, and a success coach who is helping people heal, shift their mindsets, and unlock their full potential. Tiffany has worked with thousands of clients, women in particular, providing therapy and coaching to help them live their life with an open and abundant mindset. She's also passionate about helping other clinicians grow their businesses and earn what they deserve while maintaining balance in their own lives. So in this episode, we're talking about the business of healing. So how therapy changes lives, the role of mindset and personal and financial success, and how Tiffany helps others not only survive, but thrive. If you've ever thought about therapy, struggled with self-doubt, or wondered how to build a purpose-driven business, this episode is for you. And for those of you tuning in live, remember, you can watch us every Saturday morning on IntellectualRadio.com, their YouTube channel, and on my social media platforms, Facebook and Instagram. And if you ever miss an episode, don't worry. Replays are available on YouTube, iHeartRadio, and on my Facebook and Instagram pages. We also love hearing from you. I say this every week. We welcome phone calls. So if you have questions live during the show, call us at 708-223-8953 and join the conversation in real time. So let's get comfortable. Grab your coffee or turn up the volume on your commute, or if you're out there doing your Saturday shopping or running errands, turn up the volume, tune into us. Grab your mimosa if you're at home, get comfy, and let's get into it. So I've got my guest here, Tiffany Stevens. But before we get started, I have like just a icebreaker question. So Tiffany, before we dive in, tell us one thing about yourself that most people don't know.
I don't know. I feel like I'm an open book.
Oh,
but
okay.
I'll say that I am an introvert. And this is completely outside of my comfort zone. But for Gio, I'm here. And I'm excited about it.
I appreciate that. And so just a little backstory, I guess, truly before we get started. So Tiffany and I, we just sat here before we went live and we were trying to figure out how long we've known each other. We actually met in 2005. We both worked for DeVry University. And so Tiffany joined the company in 2005. She eventually was on my team. So I was her previous boss for maybe like it was about a year or two, maybe. So we have a long history. So I've watched her growth professionally and transform into what she's doing now, or transition into what she's doing now, which I think is totally amazing and totally awesome. And that's why I wanted to have her on the show today to talk about her transition into being a counselor or therapist, working with a lot of women, empowering women, even starting her own business. What it took for her to do that, even the thought process of what she was going through, that made you make that transition. So that's what I want to talk about today. So as we get started, I guess the first question I have is like, what inspired you to pursue your career in counseling? Because I don't know that I've ever asked you that.
What inspired me was in 2006, I had a really, really close girlfriend to get murdered by her husband.
Okay.
And I couldn't understand, like, why didn't I see the signs? How was I not there for her? And so I went through a lot of therapy for myself. And in the process, I started to volunteer at a domestic violence shelter. And I enjoyed it. And I had just wrapped up a master's degree in human resources. And I was like, oh, do I really want to go back to school for something else? But I enjoyed the work so much. And if I could get paid to really help people, particularly women, then I felt like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. So I committed to it, and that's it.
So really, it was that tragedy that kind of you said, this is something that I can do. Not only has it helped me, but I want to help other women to process their feelings, their emotions, or if they're in situations, abusive situations, figure out how to get help. Right. So
because it's when you are in difficult situations, it's hard to open up and to be vulnerable, and especially for Black women to ask for help. And so for me to be able to create a safe space for women, I just felt like, it was an honor and a privilege for me to do that.
So what was your experience? I always like to talk to my friends about therapy because I'm a huge proponent for therapy. Over the years I've had a few different therapists because once you get a good therapist, you stick with a good therapist. I've just had this conversation with somebody, it might have been my mom or a friend, I can't remember, but I talk about it a lot because you oftentimes you go through a few therapists until you find the right one. It's almost like it's dating. You're dating a therapist, right? So until you find the one that you have a connection with or that you click with, and that understands you and that you receive what they have. So how was that process for you, like even finding a therapist when you were going through the process?
It was rough for me because I didn't realize how important it was for me to have a Black therapist until I got a Black therapist. So I had other therapists and they were okay, but they did not understand me at a level that I needed them to. They didn't understand me culturally, right? And so that made a difference. So I had some therapists, and I make sure that any situation I'm in, I get something from it. But when I finally got with the right therapist, and this is after I became a therapist, which makes it even more difficult to find a really good therapist. So it's a process. And I tell anybody that is looking for therapy, make sure that if you have a therapist that may not be a good fit, that you don't let that stop you and turn you off from therapy completely. Because it can be a journey finding the right one.
Yeah, finding the right one is crucial. And that is what deters a lot of people, I think, because you go, especially if you've never been, you go to that first therapist, and if it's not just like a first date, if you go to that first meeting and it's not good and you like, oh, this is not for me, I'm gonna just forget it,
especially
right?
when it's something hard,
Right.
and sometimes people want an excuse to not follow through and to not do it. And so it's like, oh, okay, she wasn't a good fit, and it's the therapist and it's not me. And you don't take ownership of, yeah, it was a bad fit, but this is your journey, and so you want to see it through.
Right. So you went to therapy yourself. So what was it that said, there's something in this that I think that I can do? Because before you got into therapy, what were you doing like for employment?
I was, oh Lord Jesus.
I know that was
It's
been a
think
while.
about it. I was what was I? Admissions advisor.
Okay.
And I realized in doing that I missed the service. I missed helping people because I was in student services, and then I transitioned to enrolling people. And I was working at Everest College. And I got fired. Because and not for what you think, Jill. Don't do me. Not today.
I'm not gonna even get into it. Like I told you all, I used to manage this young lady. So I know her in a professional setting. So that's why she said that. But okay, so things didn't go well at Everest.
Because they wanted me to sell people and put people in programs that were not good. And I couldn't do it. And I was like, you know what? This is not for me. And so
that was an integrity thing, or just it didn't align with your beliefs and all of that. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
And it was a hard choice because I'm a single mom. And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to have faith, and I cannot do this. And so I just became a full-time student. And I knew then that I had to make it work because I'm putting everything on the line. So I have to make it work. So I dedicated, and I just kept going, wouldn't give up no matter what.
So were you doing any like service, like community service or service with women, like starting to do stuff outside of school that prepared you for the therapy?
At a domestic violence shelter, and it felt like my second home, like to see the women and the children. And it was a challenge in some ways because I thought, well, I'm gonna go to this shelter, I'm gonna speak to these women, and they're gonna be so grateful, they're gonna be so nice. And that wasn't the case. Many of them had walls up, they were afraid. But it was the challenge for me of breaking those walls down and getting them to feel comfortable. I'm careful with the word trust, but definitely getting them to feel comfortable and opening up. And once they did, it was so rewarding for me. And so I just knew that this was what I wanted to do. And I wanted to work specifically with women.
So you just said something that's key in your line of work, and I got a ton of questions going through my head outside of what we have on a paper that I prepared for Tiffany that she studied, but I told her she doesn't need that.
And I'm like, extra questions. Whoa. I gotta stick to the script.
But trust. So you mentioned trust, right? And so that is a huge component of your business.
Yeah.
Trust for people to come in and tell their story and be vulnerable. So you said you're careful with that word. Why did you say that?
Because trust is earned. And a lot of times people think that when you come into a room with a therapist, you're trusting. But I just say feel comfortable. And it's the therapist's job in many ways to help build rapport. And so you come in, you share, and maybe in the first few sessions, you don't share everything. I've had clients that down the line, things come out, and I'm like, whoa, I didn't know that. And because they are, building their comfort level, maybe they don't know it, but they're breaking down walls so that they can share certain things. But yeah, people don't always come in. And sometimes we talk about shows, we talk about music, we get to know one another.
So
like
it's
dating.
not all right. It's like dating. It's not all about this is what I'm struggling with this week and I can't do this. So it could be about other things in their life that help you to get to know them, what they like, what their interests are, things like that. Okay.
Yeah, it helps me to get to know them as a person, the whole picture.
Okay. Yeah, no, I hadn't thought about that, but that's actually as I think about my own therapy, you think about things.
You didn't realize
I'm like that that you would naturally share as you're having a conversation. So that is that's actually really interesting. I hadn't thought about that. So let's talk a little bit about graceful growth counseling. So what's the story behind starting that? So you went to school, you got your degree and license. So you decide what said I'm going to start my own business instead of, or did you go work for a company?
I worked for a company.
Okay.
I worked for a not-for-profit.
Okay.
2 not-for-profits. I worked in a couple of different hospitals.
Okay.
And, I just never liked working for anybody. I don't like nobody telling me what to do. So, and my husband has a term. He says, Tiffany's going to do Tiffany. Yes. But in not-for-profit, it was rough because you don't get to choose who you work with, which is not fair for you or the client. You have so many cases you can, get burned out really quickly. And then the money is not great. And so I'm like, if I'm dedicating my life to something and I'm bringing value to something, I want to get paid. And I don't have shame in that because it's like, it's a helping field, right? And so a lot of times people feel like, oh, therapists just want to get paid. Yes, because
who
I like
doesn't
to shop,
want?
right? I like to eat.
Well, but I'm like, who doesn't?
Yeah,
and
we
especially
have to
this
live.
is a job, right?
Yeah. And so for me, it was private practice because I wanted to have autonomy in how I worked and who I worked with and how much I got paid.
Got it. So how was it in starting that business? And especially because I think we're starting to see a growth, and you can back me up on this, but we're starting to see a growth of more Black women or Black individuals owning their own private practices when it comes to therapy or counseling. So what was that experience like in you saying, okay, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to do private practice? Did you go and like talk to other therapists that had their own private practice? So how was that experience of getting up and running?
It was challenging for me because I had never worked at a private practice before. And I was invited to a very random breakfast. And like I said, I'm an introvert. And so I was like, I don't think I'm going to go. But I went. And there was a lady there, Tiffany, and she was phenomenal. She took me by the hand and was like, this is what you do. And she basically helped me set my practice up and never, ever, ever once asked for compensation. So I'm like, I will forever love and show gratitude for her. But that's how I got started because you don't know what you don't know. And so many times the unknown can stop you and cause you to not do things. And like I said before, but I had put everything on the line. So I knew that I had to make this work. And I was so passionate about it. So unfortunately, I did not do the things that I would recommend somebody to do. So I did not invest in myself. I did not have a team. I started out as Tiffany M. Stevens, LCPC. And then it kind of grew from there. Which is interesting because I was minding my business. And I wanted to be in solo because you know how I am. I'm an introvert
So you
and I
didn't
like to
want
be.
the hoopla of having a business, having a
Yes.
team, and
Yes.
managing other therapists.
Yes.
So when you started, you were just independent,
Yeah.
basically.
Yep. And so I did start it in 2019 and then the pandemic hit.
Yep.
And I had so many people coming and I was giving out so many referrals to other therapists and other practices. And I'm like, oh, okay, Tiffany, get over your BS,
Mhm.
get over your fears or whatever it is, do the work to prepare for a team. And so I did. And so I started with 2 clinicians and through the pandemic. And then by the time maybe like 2022 came, it was like 13 of us.
Wow.
So I grew really fast and I wasn't
Very.
really expecting it. And in that was a blessing, obviously, but also I didn't have systems in place. You know, I didn't really have the foundation that I wanted to have, that I needed to have. So that was a challenge.
And that's always a challenge for any
Hmm.
entrepreneur, and especially if you're not expecting to scale or grow like that fast.
Hmm.
So it's hard to have your infrastructure or to quickly even get it in place when you
Hmm.
have growth like that. But that's phenomenal
Yeah,
that you
thank you.
grew that fast. So how did you go about even finding agents or recruiting agents? Did you just like
Um,
hire out on Indeed or
Yep,
okay? Okay.
Indeed, word of mouth, but mostly Indeed. And then I partnered with a couple of schools that had counseling programs, got some interns, and went from there. But mostly Indeed.
So what is it that graceful growth like what's in the DNA of the company? Like as and even as you're recruiting other clinicians, like what is it about you guys? What's your philosophy or what do you guys embody?
Care, concern, cultural competence, and professionalism. One of the things that I've noticed about clinicians, and at one point, I was concerned for the profession because I see so many, and I think you mentioned it's like so many Black practices. And then you see like these reels where they're saying, like, oh, my therapist is showing up in bonnets and I love that. I'm like, oh,
I have
no. I'm
not
like,
heard that.
no. And then, and people like what it's like with a Black therapist and the therapist is super inappropriate. It's like, and it's
Oh,
probably
that's
like
news
because
to
of the
me.
pages I follow, right?
Okay.
Because I'm a
Yeah.
therapist. But I'm like, yeah, no, don't show up looking any kind of way. Don't show up eating. You still have to be professional. And so that's really important. Um, but also just making sure that you create a safe space where there is no judgment. And it's also making sure with my therapist, they understand that there's a balance between good girlfriend and robot. So, of course, how does that make you feel? That question, if I ever hear it in my practice, it's different ways you could ask, but
Mhm.
So we're really about engaging and making sure that clients leave every session with something that they can take with them and apply in their lives, like practical tools and tips.
That's great because I've had a therapist. When you said that, I'm like, oh wait, that's not a question. I thought that's a question they shouldn't be asking.
Well, I
Is
guess
how does
they
I mean
should, I
it's
guess,
but if
but
that's your only question that you're asking to everything that I'm telling you, and you're not giving me anything in
yes,
response, right?
right.
So yeah,
Because I believe with graceful growth, you're coming for transformation. So if you're coming and you're telling the same story and I'm just listening, and we're not actively taking steps, there's an imbalance. And I know that different people come to therapy for different reasons, but we want to make sure we're getting work done. We want to make sure that we're moving at the client's pace, of course, but that there is progress and transformation happening and not just you coming to dump. And we'll allow that for a little bit because it may be what you need, but that's not the end goal.
so what all do you all cover? I know as I've looked at therapists, I mean, it's probably like 50 different types of topics that they cover. So what is like at the crux of what you guys do, or do you just offer a variety of
We
different?
offer a variety of different services, different clinicians specialize in different areas.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. What, and I don't know if this is something that you can share because I know there's HIPAA and privacy and things like that, but like, what do you all see the most? Or what have you, over the last couple of years, what have you been seeing the most cases for? Like, or,
Anxiety,
okay.
life is
Mhm.
happening.
Life is lifing.
Yeah, and a lot of times people have thought, "Oh, I have to go to therapy because well, I can only go to therapy if there's drama, trauma, breakdown, or severe mental illness. But it's for everyday life. We go through experiences that shape how we view things, and so I believe that anybody and everybody can benefit from therapy.
Do you feel like therapy has to be long term? I think there's a misconception that, oh, I have to go to therapy and I'm going to be in therapy forever. Or do you feel like therapy can be short term too? Like if I just need to go, I've got this one issue, I need to talk to somebody about it, but once I'm done, I'm done.
Hmm. That happens.
Okay.
What I've learned though is a lot of times people will come in for that one concern, and you can identify themes and patterns that may indicate that they could be there for other reasons. But if they don't want to, they don't have to. And it's certainly okay to show up for a particular issue to work through that. And then when you get to a point, it's like, yeah, I don't need it anymore. I recommend in the beginning weekly, because you're establishing a relationship, getting to know somebody. So it's weekly. And then once you have your treatment plan and you have your goals and you're making progress, then maybe every other week, then once a month. But you don't have to be there long term at all. No. So, but I do think that maintenance is good. So even if it's once a quarter,
It's
how
like a
are you
car.
checking in? Yeah.
I mean, we are like cars, right? And we
Yeah.
need tune-ups, we need oil
Mhm.
changes, we need our brakes done. So that's why I even asked the question
Mhm.
about the duration of therapy,
Yeah.
because yeah, I can go, and I'm a victim of this, not a victim, but I'm guilty of this. Is I will go for 3 months and then I'll take a break.
Mhm. Do you
And for
communicate
three
to your
months,
therapist that you're gonna take a break?
do I communicate? I try. Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's the responsible thing to do. But don't get me wrong, I'm guilty of, and my therapist might be watching. My old therapist might be watching, but I'm guilty of. Oh, I'll cancel.
Oh,
I'll
it
cancel, and
happens.
then when it's time for the next one, I'll say, you know what, I'm gonna take a break. It's
Mhm.
sometimes it can become a lot
Yeah.
when you are listening to yourself.
Mhm.
And yes, I'm getting help, but sometimes hearing my own stuff can be a lot.
Yeah. And it's work, and it's not easy work. But
It
I
is
think
work.
back
Oh,
to the
that is the
point when
key
you think
word.
about like maintenance, right? Um, if you don't get those brakes checked, if you don't take care of your car, what happens? So it's the same thing.
Absolutely. You're
It's
in
the same thing.
trouble. You can't get to where you're trying to go. I mean, it is a great similarity in the
Mhm.
car and the body and the mind, right?
Mm.
And taking care of it. So
Mhm.
that's why I asked that question. And you mentioned anxiety. I know that that is an issue not only for um the younger generation. It's a huge thing. I know for older adults, especially people that are our age or older, I think the word anxiety has grown over the past what decade.
Yeah, it's grown, and it's also been misused and
That's what I was getting to.
overused.
It's been misused, it's been overused, and I think it's also been ignored too. I think, and that's what I was getting to those that are our age or even older, even our parents or grandparents, they were dealing with anxiety and didn't know what it was, right?
Mhm.
And we have in our community, there was other ways besides therapy to deal with those things. We talk about the church and,
Mhm.
or just bottling it up or talking to your girlfriend or, and they had anxiety and they didn't know how to diagnose it. They didn't know how to handle it.
Mhm.
Now, fast forward, decades later, anxiety is a huge word, especially for this younger generation. Some of them, I feel like they use it as a crux.
Mhm.
And so it's there. So when I asked you that question, I figured you were going to say anxiety or depression. I would
Mhm.
feel like that would be the backup
But those are the two top ones that we see.
that you
Yep.
see, right?
Mhm.
So how do you all, when people come to you, even for anxiety or depression, I'm sure when you get clients that sit down and they've never had therapy before, they say all the things. Oh, well, I talked to my pastor. I talked to my family or my best friend, or you're overcoming the traditional norms of in our community who we used to talk to or how we used to
Mhm.
handle our emotional or our mental issues, but combating those things with now you're sitting down with a professional, a licensed person.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Usually when you talk to people that know you and love you, they are biased, number one. you they're only hearing your side of the story. So yeah, there's that. And the other thing is that you're mostly just talking. Are they giving you tools and strategies, not just to cope, but also to change your mindset and your perspective and the way that you look at things? So
Got it.
I think that's the difference.
Okay. So, like you've worked with thousands of clients or
Mhm.
tons of women.
Mhm.
I don't know how to position, but you worked with a lot of people. I know that for a fact.
Mhm.
So, what's been the most rewarding part of the journey thus far?
I would say the impact overall, just the service that I provide directly, the services that my clinicians provide, and out of Graceful Growth, we've had 3 private practices born. And so for me,
Wow.
that's huge.
That's amazing. Yeah,
Mhm.
that is speaks to your level of basically guiding these individuals into building their own practices, inspiration,
Mhm.
showing people that it can be done,
Mhm.
showing them how it can be done. Because that's the one thing about entrepreneurship. A lot of people want to be entrepreneurs, but they don't know how, and you don't necessarily have the example set before you. So I applaud you for being that
Thank
example,
you.
and especially in a field that's needed and that needs more.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's phenomenal. So how did you transition from therapist to success coach? I wanted to kind of get into that because I know we just kind of talked about anxiety and depression, but part of what you guys do is um life coach, I guess I would say. A success coach might be a different way, but life coach.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And what
Um,
does that look like? Let's step back and talk about what is a life coach and
mhm.
what services they provide or what type of tools they provide.
Yeah. So life coaching is a little it's different. It's different because most of the clients, some clients come in for life coaching and they've kind of gotten over the big hurdles, right? And it may be small mindset shift changes that's needed, right? Or they may be working on a particular project or business idea that they want to have help with, but they feel stuck in some areas. So that's why for me, I say success. And I in life coaching, I will do maybe relationships, but outside
Mhm.
of relationships and business, mm-mm. Because a lot of times people use life coaching as a protective way of saying it's nothing wrong with me. I'm getting help, but it's nothing wrong with me. So life coaching it seems to be more acceptable than
See, and I
therapy.
always thought life coach was, oh, I have a plan, or say for me for real estate, right? I want to be a realtor. I don't know how to go about executing this plan. Now, that might be more of a business coach,
Yeah.
but I don't know how to transition my life into doing something different, right?
Hmm.
So I need a life coach because I'm going through a transition
Yeah.
period in my life.
Yeah. And so that's where Bernadette comes in at.
Got you.
So
Okay.
for me, it's more or
And
less.
Bernadette is her sister, by the way. She just threw that name out.
Yeah.
Bernadette Stevens is her sister who does
Hmm.
life coaching.
Yeah.
She's also a realtor. She does some other things as well. She is phenomenal as well. And she will be on the show probably April or May. Probably May. But anyway, so Bernadette does more of your life coaching.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Or
if it's an
success coaching.
area in life where they're looking for transformation,
Hmm.
Bernadette will help. And the difference too is therapy, insurance companies regulate therapy sessions with therapists, right? And so you may have a relationship concern or you may have some other things that insurance companies don't feel you need therapy for. And
Or that
so
they're going to pay for.
well, yeah, they're
Right.
not gonna pay for it.
Yeah.
And it's they call them like Z codes.
Okay.
So you can't get therapy for that. And so then some people may say, well, I'm going to go into life coaching so that I don't have these restrictions on how I work with people. I work with who I want to work with. I don't have to take time waiting for insurance companies to pay me or live in these little boxes that they kind of want to put us in. So that's why some other people, therapists and particularly, do life coaching. But it is life coaching is a little different than what I do because I specifically work with individuals wanting to focus on business. So that's why I call it success coaching.
Okay. So back to, and I kind of want to go into this briefly because I know a lot of people it's a hindrance is the insurance piece, right? Is payment. How do I pay for it? I think
Oh.
on top of finding the right therapist or
Mhm,
coach,
mhm.
is who's going to pay for it because it can be it
It
not
can
can be it
it
is
is.
expensive because
Yeah.
I know because I was paying out of pocket per session and I
Mhm,
know how expensive they are.
mhm,
So especially for a lot of our listeners or viewers who are thinking, how do I even pay for this? Or my insurance already said they're not going to cover it. So
mhm.
that hinders a lot of people
Yeah.
from going.
Mhm,
So even whether it's depression, anxiety, or success coaching or business coaching, how does that even work with insurance, the business coaching and the success coaching?
That's out of pocket.
Okay,
We
and
don't,
that's what I
yeah.
wanted to get to,
That's
because
out
I
of
know that's a
pocket.
service you provide. So
hmm
for anybody that's interested in connecting with you, and we'll get to that at the end of the show of how they can reach out to you, but just so you can let people know that is a separate
It's a
service.
separate
Yeah.
service.
Okay.
We don't,
Okay.
you can't use insurance. But I will say I've worked with women in the past as clients, using insurance and self-pay, where they may have been stuck in a particular area of business. And when we really looked at it, it was a lot of inner child wounds that
Wow.
was showing up today, impacting business, whether it's worth, deservability, um, things that they were told that they weren't smart enough, whatever the case may be. A lot of those things from the past come back up and prevent them from moving forward in life now. But to answer the question about the insurance, we have these big companies out that will tell people, oh, you can come to us and you'll pay like $30. Well, that's everywhere. The insurance companies will pay for anxiety, they'll pay for depression, adjustment disorder. So if you have like this major change and you're struggling, they'll pay for some of those things. And I recommend calling the number on the back of the card,
Your insurance card.
your insurance card,
Okay.
being very clear about your benefit details, and just knowing different terms like what is the co-payment, what is a deductible, and just being versed enough to make sure that you're not getting hit with a heavy bill. But most therapy is covered by insurance.
So do you need a referral, or this is a bad word, like a prescription,
No,
or just
referral
something
is
from your
good.
doctor
Yeah.
saying that, oh, I've got depression, or oh, this my patient is suffering from anxiety, and then you take that to your insurance company saying that it's on record
Yeah.
that I have these issues?
No, what happens is it's a really easy process. If you have an HMO plan, you'll have to have a referral from a doctor. But if you have a PPO plan and behavioral health is covered under your plan, you'll call the number on the back of the card. You'll get they'll give you a couple, and then you just kind of do your due diligence to make sure you find a good fit.
Mhm.
Um, you do insurance verification, make sure the practice do the insurance verification beforehand so you'll know what your responsibility is. And then you go from there.
So would you recommend people, like anybody that says, oh, I want to call Tiffany and I want to see if graceful growth, if they can take me, do
hmm
you advise like to call and have these questions in advance before I call my insurance company to know, like, say, hey, I'm, suffering from depression. Is there any, before I call my insurance company, what should I tell them?
You know what? What I recommend is going online, clicking the get started button, and completing an inquiry.
And that's with
Then
you all.
that's with us.
Okay.
Then you'll upload the insurance card front and back. We verify benefit details so we can tell you exactly what is covered.
Got it.
Of course, it's your bill. You are responsible. So if you want to follow up with the insurance company, you can, but we provide that service for
Okay,
clients.
great. Because I know that could be something that scares people off, or they don't know. You hit the word, you said it, terminology. So I'm just
hmm
like, what do I know what to say when I'm calling my insurance
Yeah.
company? Because you used maybe something, that a diagnosis, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I'd never heard that term. So that's what
hmm
made me think,
hmm
do I call you first to say, hey, these are the things I'm experiencing? What do I need to call my insurance company and say? But you're saying call you.
No, but first you come in and you get an assessment so that the
Okay.
professional can let you know what
Okay.
it is.
So
And the
then that's what I'm
professional,
saying. Walk
yeah.
us. What is the process?
Okay. So the process would be to get started, which I know is like the biggest and often the toughest step is just getting started. So basically you go online or you call, let the company know that you're interested in services. They'll run your insurance, verify benefits, let you know exactly like, okay, well, you have this deductible. Has it been met? Yes or no? This is the copayment. So you know how much it's going to cost. Then you have your first session. Some clinicians offer complimentary consultations. Some say, you know what, we need to do a full session. It depends on the clinician. And it depends on what you want. If you want a consultation and somebody doesn't offer it, you go to the next person that will. You have the consultation or the session, then you're diagnosed. But I personally don't diagnose. I don't give clients the diagnosis unless they ask me. Like, we talk about it, they'll know what's happening, they'll know what's going on with them, they'll know the plan, but that is for the insurance company. And if it was a way I didn't have to diagnose, I probably wouldn't, but it's beneficial. And so then the company will, because not the clinician, the company will submit the claim to the insurance company, and that's it. So that's how it goes. So you basically give the information that's needed to get the insurance verification. You show up for the session, and then the practice will do everything else.
Got it. I just wanted people to know, how do I get started? And then when it comes in terms to finding, because you said you've got how many staff members? You got 15 clinicians or
Now we have 12.
12. So what am I researching on your website, or based on the inquiry form, are you matching me with somebody, or do I do my research? What do you recommend? Do my research ahead of time? That's typically what I do, but I don't, you being in the industry and in the profession, what do you recommend?
I recommend people being very clear on what it is that they are coming into counseling for. Making sure that you have questions, and not just like random questions that anybody can answer and make sound good. Find out success. Like, have you worked with people experiencing? What are some, breakthroughs that you've received? What's scheduling like? Because it may be a good, therapist client fit, but the schedules won't work. And so I just say, make sure that you think about it in advance, write down every single question, and then you have those conversations with the therapist to make sure it's a good fit. But did I answer the question?
Yeah, no, you
Okay.
did. I just wanted to know, like, what would you recommend that people do when you're
Oh,
trying to
and so
find?
yeah,
Yeah,
and go on
because
the
you got
website.
12
Yeah,
therapists. I'm thinking, well, who do
yeah,
I just go through the website and read
yep.
everybody's bio and figure out who I might resonate with
Mm-hmm.
the most and try that person out?
Yeah, and if you don't know, you could call and we'll pair you with a therapist that'll be a good fit for you.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So I want to move a little bit. I know we've kind of touched on some of this, but I want to kind of educate the audience on the importance of therapy and an abundance mindset, because I know that's something, a philosophy of yours.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start by talking about, like, why do you think mental health is still, and I won't say such, but still a taboo topic in certain communities, and I'm gonna just say Black communities. Um, but other communities as well. I think coming out of COVID, because you're like the third person that I know that has grown
Mm-hmm.
exponentially out of COVID, but you've heard it. I mean, we've heard the stories, the amount of therapy that was happening during and post COVID. So I know it seems to be an increase in our community, and especially social media has given a spotlight to therapy and what it does for people. But it's still, I think, it's still a stigma or a taboo, especially for Black people, for therapy. So why do you think that is still there?
You want the Tiffany answer?
I want your real answer. This
Ignorance.
is okay.
Ignorance.
Ignorance.
A lot of times it's easier to judge what you don't understand. It's easier to make it wrong. It's easier to say this is something that you shouldn't do because it takes so much work and vulnerability to do it. And so when people think about it, and like I said earlier, if you think that it's only for somebody with severe mental illnesses, if you think that you can only benefit from therapy if you've had a lot of trauma, and I think to a degree each of us has experienced our own trauma, and it may look different. But if you think that and so it's just a lot of times people making assumptions and judgments on something that they've never even experienced. So they just don't know.
So they just don't
They
know.
just don't know.
And people, we tend to, the things that we don't know,
Mm-hmm.
we tend to not do, right? So I would agree with that answer. And I think it's the vulnerability as well. In my own personal opinion, I think it's being vulnerable with somebody that you don't know.
Yep.
And putting all of your business out there to someone that you don't know, and going back to that word that you used in the beginning, the trust factor. It's not easy to trust, and that is part of vulnerability, but sitting down with somebody and laying everything out there, whether it's a temporary problem or a long-term problem or a childhood problem, something that's hindering me or stopping me from growing, it is hard to address it. And sometimes you just don't want to be told you don't want to confront what the issue is,
Mhm.
right?
Yep. And a lot of times people feel like, well, if I don't think about it, if I don't talk about it, it's not much of an issue.
Or
But
it'll go away,
it'll go away.
and it
But it
doesn't.
won't. And it runs every single area of your life, whether you know it or not.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. So, what do you think are some of the misconceptions about therapy that you're still hearing today? Like, because I know you, as part of marketing, you
Hmm.
and Bernadette do, to market graceful growth. As you're talking to women individually, like, what are you still hearing?
Um, Therapy doesn't work. It's a waste of money. I could talk to my friends. I could pray about it. Those are some of the things that we hear. Um, and it's not true.
Do you guys target or do anything with the youth?
We see children,
Okay.
but we don't have any programs or anything like that for youth.
Okay. I just was thinking, what are you hearing from the youth? Because that is a thing. And not that children being in therapy hasn't always been a thing, but it is to me a bigger thing now.
Hmm.
One of those things, maybe social media has highlighted kids and even teenagers being in therapy. So I know there are some practices out there that whether they're doing philanthropy work or just service in the community, and providing a safe space for teens
Mhm.
or youth to come in and talk to people. I just didn't know if you guys were doing any of that work.
No,
Okay.
but younger people are so much more open to therapy. It's
Really? Okay.
they are open to it. And it seems like as time goes on, more people are open to it. So like the younger you are, the more open you are to it. And it's just people probably my age and up that's like, I don't know about therapy. So
Yeah, it's the stigma.
hmm
It is years of, I don't even know the right word, but the years of, we watched our parents and grandparents, the way that they've handled things,
hmm
and those things tend to trickle down into how we handle
yeah.
things. But I think like I said, our age group, I feel like kind of maybe might be the breaking, not breaking point, but we started to see a change.
Yeah.
We started to
Because
see
I
a
think
change.
that for so long we had this idea of what it means to be strong. And oftentimes that looks like I could do it on my own. I got this. I'll push through. But it's strength in asking for help. It's strength in acknowledging where you can improve. It's strength in saying, like, here is my stuff. How can you help me package this and make sense and help me navigate through life, giving given the things that I've gone through. So there's
And
strength in that.
you seeing a lot of women just being strong, because that is strong Black women, right?
Mhm.
And I can imagine your clients, and I don't know if this is information you can give, is the predominant of your clientele, is it Black or is it
Black women.
okay?
Yep.
So being strong, I'm sure, is an underlining
Mhm.
theme. I don't even know that it's underlining. It might,
Yeah,
you
it's not.
know,
It's just out there. And I
right.
have clients. We could be talking about some really heavy stuff, and I'm looking, and I'm like, girl, if you do not blink, like it's okay to cry in this session, right?
Right.
Like sometimes it's about
That
giving people
vulnerability.
permission.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like of all the places, this is a safe space just for you. And you are holding on and you like, nope, I can't cry because
And I
that's
can't take
weakness.
my
And
cape off.
and I cannot take
I
my cape
can't
off.
say, and I don't know how to take my cape off, right? So that is
Yep.
that strong Black women, I don't want to say syndrome. I don't know what to call it, but we have to, it's just who we are. We are strong, but we wear that cape
Mhm.
outside, inside. And so it's hard to find a safe space to take it
Mhm.
off.
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah, I think finding a therapist that makes you feel comfortable to do that is like so important.
Mhm. Because I have clients that come into session. How are you? I'm good, but we're gonna talk about you today, and I just love working with Black women because we are just so powerful and so unique. But yeah, so I'm making sure that my clients know that this is about you, um, because they will try it every time.
I laughed because I've been guilty of doing that as well. Is especially if I want to delay getting into talking about what's going on with me,
Mhm.
I'll redirect. I'm
Mhm.
very good at
Because
that.
that's
I'll
our
redirect.
go-to. We take care of people.
Hmm.
That's the default many
Yeah, yeah.
times. And so if I can do that instead of talking about my stuff, yeah,
to
I'm going.
to divert, absolutely. That's interesting. And I guess that kind of goes back to your open, abundant mindset.
Mm,
Helping people develop that mindset of being comfortable, and coming in and taking your cape
yeah.
off and being vulnerable, and just you came here, you're paying, somebody's paying for this,
Mm-hmm.
let's use it, get
Yes.
something out of it while
Mm-hmm.
you're here.
But the other thing with the abundant mindset is just helping people realize what's possible.
I
Like
love that.
everything that you do, everything that you create is formed from your thoughts. And so we want to make sure that your thoughts are in alignment with what you say you want and that you believe again that it's possible.
So what type of strategies, or help me with the right word,
Hmm.
but what type of strategies or practices do you guys do with clients to help them do that? Because it's not all about talking.
Hmm.
So I know I was given tons of homework.
Hmm.
So do you have clinicians that really focus on these exercises, or like what are some of the types of things that you guys ask? I know you can't require patients to do certain things, or clients to do certain things. What type of like exercise do you guys put
We
people through to
we
get that
do.
abundant mindset?
Hmm. We do a lot of somatic work, and so having them check in with their bodies. We do cognitive behavioral therapy to help them examine their thoughts, help them to reframe their thoughts so that they're more productive. And so some homework is more worksheet based. I personally prefer to do more practical. And so let's have this tough conversation or what's holding you back. Let's look at that and come up with some ways to overcome these challenges and what would that look like in life and how do you practice it? So it just depends on the person because like it's not one size fits all. So it depends on the person and the situation.
Got it. Um, Accountability. I
Mm.
just thought about that because
Mhm.
as I thought about exercises and homework that your therapist or even my therapist has given me, who's holding us accountable of doing the work? I know that's not necessarily your job, or I guess I'm asking the question because I've never asked before, but who's holding you accountable? I'm coming, yes, you being paid, you're giving me homework, but is it helping? Like who's
That's on the therapist because if it's not helping, what's the other strategy? If you are doing a million things in life and I'm giving you this homework and you're not getting it done, there's a reason you're not getting it done. And so maybe you don't need another thing added to your plate, or maybe there's a blockage or a barrier that we need to work through so that you can do it. Sometimes it's just when you give a client homework, it's too overwhelming for them to do it on their own. And so sometimes it's just beneficial to work through it in session. So it's so many different ways. I mean, so many different reasons that a client may not be doing the homework, but just being able to explore and find out the root cause of why they're not doing it so that you can work around that and help them figure some things out to get it done.
do you guys offer, besides therapy, do you offer like workshops, or are you doing seminars, or
Mm.
taking things beyond just the one-on-one sessions?
Yes, we have a workshop coming up actually
Nice.
on what the 29th. It's called Sex Fidence.
Okay, please
So,
let's break that. Let's get into that. Let's break that down. What is this?
so we have a sex therapist on
Okay.
our team,
Okay.
Quanda. Wonderful and amazing. And we often talk about like how you do one thing, you do everything,
Mhm.
right? And so, what are some ways that you're being held back or you are lacking confidence in the bedroom, in the boardroom, and just being unsure of yourself? And so, we are talking about that through the sex fidence and just being able to be in charge and in control of your pleasure, whether you're in a relationship, whether you're single, what that looks like for you, being okay asking for what you want in the bedroom, outside the bedroom.
Mhm.
And so that's what the workshop is. It's just talking about confidence, but the confidence starting with you.
I love that. I love that because you need both, and you're right, in and out the outside of the bedroom.
Mhm.
Um, and oftentimes what you're lacking in one area, it spills over into the other, and you might not realize it, but it's deep rooted in what's happening out here.
Yep.
But when
Everything
you
is
come
connected.
home, you know, it is still impacting inside. So I love that that you guys are doing that. Have you done any other ones in the past?
We
Okay.
have a self-love summer series coming up.
Oh, nice.
So we are doing more events and workshops.
Okay. I'm finding that just in my social media at night scrolling, but that there are more people, and not even just in the counseling or therapy space. There's more events for women and wellness, holistic things. I know the sound bath thing is like a big thing. I haven't really read or really watched what it is, but I know that I'm seeing it more and more. So I know that there's more things for women that are being created or provided because like we're here, we're important, right? And we need to take care of ourselves because so many people depend upon us, right?
Yep.
And so much is required of us, so much is asked of us, or expected of us, and so we often get lost in the world of the pulls that are on us, right? So just different things to take care of us, mind, body, and spirit. So that's why I asked, were you guys starting to do more of that? So I know in your business, so back to the success coaching, just because that lends to my show, you know, me being an entrepreneur, being a realtor, and people starting businesses. And I think it's so important that you share your journey of starting your own business, and that you have been able to help your clinicians that came to work for you help them start their own business, and that you guys are giving coaching to those that want to do whatever in business, in life, or whatever. But what what does that look like? What does the plan look like if I wanted to do success coaching? Like I meet with Bernadette and we talk
Bernadette is more life coaching.
life coaching.
I do
Okay.
success coaching.
Okay.
Yeah. So you reach out and we have a conversation because I want to get to know you. I want to know what's going on with you, and then talk about some of the goals that you have, and then we create a plan for it.
So you do like one-on-one sessions? Okay.
Sessions.
You that just totally brought me back to our one-on-ones and back in the day. I'm sorry, I had to go there.
She's not gonna let this 20 year ago me.
I'm not gonna let it go. This girl gave me a hard time. So when I say coming, like doing not even a full circle, this is just a 180, just in the Tiffany that I knew and how you have grown.
She is gone, but Gio is like, no, we gonna talk about this.
No, I'm not. Because I'm embracing. I love this Tiffany, and I did not love that Tiffany either. But I who you are or what you're doing now is what I always thought you were capable of doing, of helping people and all of that. So when you were saying like have the one-on-one, it just brought me back to
one-on-one. But you know what? I think that is so important to have people in your life who can hold space for you, who can see the vision, who can see what's possible for you even when you can't. And when I was working at DeVry, that for me was a really, really, really dark time. Like I had lost a really good friend. I was in a dead relationship that I refused to let go of. I was a single mom. Many times I was driving from Indiana to Naperville. And when you are not, I think that's just a testament. When you are not living and walking in your purpose, what that can do to you, mind, body,
how
and
miserable
soul. How
you can be.
miserable.
Absolutely.
Yeah, miserable.
Yes.
And it was just finding out, because a lot of times I also work with women who are exploring and finding out what it is and how we can use their gifts and their passions to create a business, to create something from it. But it was something else. Oh, don't worry, I have employees that give me back. They give me everything I gave you tenfold.
Okay.
So yeah, so I'm like, oh, Gio, Lord, so many others before and after you. But yeah, but that was a really just awful time for me. And I like to say that if I can transform, and I know what it takes to transform, I can help others to do it.
I love that. I love that. And even hearing you say that, and I don't know that, or I just don't remember, but I didn't know how we just often don't know. We were young then. I didn't even stop to ask everything that you were going through. So even just that's a note for people out there. You never know what people are going through, and how we have these expectations, whether you're my employee, whether you're a friend in a relationship. and you're not communicating, I don't know that I ever asked,
Yeah.
you know.
But I think that's one of the things that I know it's one of the things I talk to my clinicians about is compassionate assumptions. Like a lot of times we just assume that somebody is being a certain way for a certain reason without really thinking, what else could this person be going through? Let me be compassionate. Let me look at this and give this person some grace, and then we can see what we can come up with. And it works. And it's not only helpful for the person who's receiving the grace, but it helps for the person that's giving it as well.
Yeah, and that's why I've gotten asked this, and I learned this. It's not a technique; it's really just a mental or behavior. But asking people how they're doing,
Mm-hmm.
like some people get so or they're so surprised when I ask. But the people that are close to me and that I love and that I care about, I'm gonna ask how you doing. And
Mm-hmm.
I just listening to you and even us talking about that, I'm just like, that's why it's so important to do check-ins
Mm-hmm.
with your people.
Yeah.
And yes, no, I might not be able to solve, but I can help you. And if that's helping you get to therapy
Yep.
or whatever, or recommending or whatever, that's why it's important to check in and ask your people, your inner
Mm-hmm.
circle,
Mm-hmm.
right, how they're doing.
Yep.
So that
And
just
mean it.
and mean it, because some
Mm-hmm.
people will ask and not mean it. You can tell them, and it goes in one ear and out the other. So when you ask, be prepared to hear what they have to say, and what can you offer,
Yep.
and what can you offer. So graceful growth, what's next for you guys? I know we talked about workshops. Are any different areas you guys are going to be involving into other things?
No, graceful growth is, I'm just excited about the continued growth. The fact that it's more like automated, so it runs seamlessly without me now, which
Okay,
is
that's
amazing.
amazing.
Yeah, I've been going on vacation, leaving
Oh,
my
great,
laptop at home and everything. It's
great,
been good.
great.
Um, and so that's what I'm looking forward to. And maybe continuing to help other people. I'm developing more of an educational program
Mhm.
because what I've noticed is that therapists will come into the practice. And so with therapists, you graduate school, right? But you have to work under somebody else for something like real estate, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
So you work under somebody else for 2 years. So in those 2 years, you're at my practice. I'm giving you all of the leads, right?
Mm.
And so they're technically graceful growth clients, but these people are connecting with a therapist.
Mhm.
They're building a relationship with the therapist. So when the therapist leaves, what happens?
That client, if they built a relationship, they leave as well.
Right. And so I'm making sure that I build into graceful growth. Like these are the things that we can do and to have an agreement to say when you leave, you can go and you can have your practice and you're set. But also, how can the machine that graceful growth has built support you admin, administratively.
So you
So
guys are offering like third party, like external systems. Like
yeah.
if I want to go start my own practice, I can hire you, Graceful Growth, to do some of the infrastructure, the business infrastructure. That's
Yeah.
great.
So it's
Yep.
it's gonna be graceful growth, but it's a
Mhm.
different part. And so it's like the educational. And some people may not want to start private practice, but you may want to be clinical director. And so what track works best for you and how
Mhm.
can we develop you while you're here? Because I really do believe in investing in people. And just building a team that I can trust because I believe and I know that when you take care of people, they take care of you.
No, absolutely. And just with my business brain on, if you look at entrepreneurs now, and this is happening in real estate or in other industries, but you have to come up with other ways, streams of income, not even just individually, but for your business. How else
Mhm.
can we generate revenue, right?
Mhm.
So if I'm able to provide a service to external practices,
Mhm.
because we've got this thing down and now we can go out and sell this product or sell this service, why not offer it?
Yep.
Whether it be educational, whether it be technology, whether it
Mhm.
be systems, or just bookkeeping. I'm just coming up with
Yeah.
ideas, but
Mhm.
if you guys have mastered it and you're able to provide it to those up and coming or
Mhm.
growing private practices, why not sell it?
Yep.
Yeah,
Because they don't teach you how to
right.
build a business in grad
Absolutely.
school when you're becoming a
Absolutely.
therapist. But I've gone through it. I've had the mistakes, I've had the successes. And so just being able to say, like, here's the SOP. This is how you do this.
Yep.
This is how you automate this. This is how you delegate. When I was a solo practitioner, answering the phones and verifying insurance, that was tough stuff, and still being in session, working with individuals. And so if we can help alleviate that or kind of give you direction, that's going to be another where we're going to
I love
be
that
heading.
because that when I asked you about growth or what's next, that is your growth plan. Honestly, that is how you guys scale up and
Yeah.
continue to grow your business. I love that. This is one personal question I have. Then I have some rapid fire questions I'm gonna ask before we wrap up. But I've always wondered, do therapists have therapists?
I do.
Okay.
Because maybe if I didn't.
Okay, I wondered as something that you said before, and it made me think, let me ask her this because I've always wondered, you all take on so much, you hear so much on top of dealing with you're still human and you have your own life. Your mom, your wife, all of those things.
Yeah.
So I'm like, and I'm running a business. I may have some things that I'm going through on top of hearing everybody else's stuff. So is it common?
It's responsible.
Okay.
I think it's responsible. Take care of you. Take care of you. Make sure that your thoughts are where they need to be. Make sure that your soul is being taken care of. So I would hope that therapists see therapists. I can't speak to all, for all therapists.
I was gonna say, like, is that something that you've heard, like being in the industry, that it's common for therapists to have?
I have quite a few friends that are therapists. They all have therapists.
Okay. So
I encourage my team to get therapists.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. But clearly they're seeing somebody external.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You all see somebody external. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's great. I think taking care of you in a business as you're taking care of other people is so important. So that's why I wanted to ask that question. So we got some fun, quick questions to lighten the conversation and end on a high note. So
wait, am I answering these just quick?
No, I mean, we've got a few minutes left, but okay. So what's your morning routine in one sentence?
My morning routine is intentional and essential.
Intentional and essential. So you're intentional by doing.
Oh yeah. So every morning I get up and I work out.
That's essential.
It is.
By being intentional.
I'm getting better.
Okay.
But then when I come back from working out, I do what's called an appointment with God. And so you know how we have like the CFO and the CMO. I have a CSO. It's my chief spiritual officer. Just another name for God. And so my husband is teaching a class right now at church, and I'm taking the class. And so I've done this before in the past, and I have amazing results from it, but I'm doing it now. So every morning I write a letter thanking God for what I have. And then I continue to write thanking God for what I want as if I already have it. And that's amazing for me. And so I do that every morning. Then I get in my car and I have coffee to cancel out the workout I just had.
No, coffee can be it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. I love that. CSO. That is great. And and writing a letter to God to start. And you do that every day?
Yeah. And the reason why I find it so beneficial is because it is helping me to develop the mindset and the consciousness for what I want.
And
it's
putting it on paper.
On my mind every single day. I'm thinking about it. I'm writing it out. Yeah, I'm putting it on paper. So
I applaud you for that because I mean, I think that is just an elevated way of people's morning of getting up and praying, right? So you are kind of taking it a step further. Your letter to God, yep,
it's my time for prayer.
Absolutely, I love that.
I do all of those things,
I love that.
And I need it because it sets the tone for the rest of the day, and it prepares me for whatever may come my way because I don't always know what I'm gonna run into.
Do you go back and read? Like I wondered. Okay, that's great. So that is your intentional and essential morning. I love that. Okay, so what is your favorite self-care activity?
I go to church.
Okay.
You know, a lot of times when we hear self-care, we think about the outer. We think about the outer, but for me, I like to think about like, how can this be something that's long lasting? How can my soul benefit from this? So I look at it as more soul care than just self-care. So I go to church.
Okay. And then if you could have dinner with any influential woman, past or present, who would it be?
Madam C.J. Walker.
Ooh, why? That's an interesting one.
If you could do that then.
Okay.
With all of the limitations, I mean, like we still got stuff happening or whatever.
Right.
But if you could do that then, tell me
what can you do now in 2025?
Right?
I can only imagine what kind of things you would ask, and then who would pop up at that dinner or breakfast or whatever it is, dinner. I'm like to ask their questions because hair has come so far. So yeah, that's an interesting one. I was not expecting you to say that.
Just be so resourceful. Yeah, and who else would pop up?
Or no, who else? You can give me another person that you.
I don't know. My grandmother is coming up for me.
Wow.
Hmm.
Okay. I love that.
Yeah.
Things that you would want to tell her, or yeah, things that you
Hmm.
want to tell her.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because me and my grandmother going to church was our thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And when I first saw my husband, I was like, I know he a minister up here, but I'm gonna get him. And she was like, "Girl, leave that man alone. That man ain't studying you." And I was like, "Okay, grandma." And so to be like, "Girl, we got married." So, girl, I'm getting
And
emotional,
how
but
speak things into
yep.
existence. Yep. Okay.
So, I would love to
Madam
have my
CJ
grand.
Walker and your grandmother.
Yep.
That would be a great dinner.
And when I first got my office, she brought me my first couch,
Aw.
and it was me. I was a solo practitioner to
Mm-hmm.
see where I am now.
Yep. And how
So,
you've grown and what you
mm-hmm.
are going to continue to do.
Yeah.
So, last question, best piece of career advice you've ever received. It can be from me. It could be from, no, I'm teasing.
You know what?
I don't even know that I gave you any.
No,
So,
you
no.
just giving me crap all the time.
But no, I'm sure your best piece of career advice, or it could have been something from school,
Really,
or
I think the quickest piece of advice, real quick, it was inspect what you expect.
inspect what you expect.
Yeah, and so I have a team that I didn't always trust, but I do now, right? It took me a minute to get there
Mm-hmm.
to be able to
That trust
fully
word.
trust,
Yep.
right? Because I
Yeah.
had to be in everything.
Mm-hmm.
But then I got to a point where I'm like, oh, my team got it, my team got it. And then stuff hit the fan and I'm paying the costs,
Yep.
right? And so no, pay attention to
The
everything.
devil is in
Pay
the
attention to
details. Yeah, the
everything.
devil is in the details, and especially when you're running your own business and you're responsible for people.
Yeah, and I think the other really good piece is that God is my partner in everything. And so I always,
Yes.
before making a big decision, I pray, I meditate, I really reflect on it. And so I don't make decisions without checking in with God, you know.
I
Mm,
love that. Yep, I love that God is seems to be in your practice, right?
oh
So
yeah.
I know there's a lot of people out there that look for spiritual based practices,
Hmm.
and so I think that is in kind of what the core of what you
You know what?
guys offer.
It's interesting because a lot of times people will call and say, "Is this a Christian practice?" I'm like, "It's not," but I'm a Christian, and it's me
Hmm.
basically, and so it may present that way. But yeah, and so it's at the forefront. God is at the forefront of everything. So I never do anything without going within to see, is this what I need to do? If I'm feeling fear, what is this fear?
Hmm.
And what's causing it? How can I work through it? So, yep.
Nope, I love that. I love that. Thank you for answering my random rapid fire questions. So Tiffany, before we wrap up, let our listeners know where they can connect with you and learn more about your work, or even work with you guys.
We can be found at the website gracefulgrowthcounseling.com, on Instagram at Graceful Growth Counseling. And yeah,
Phone number to call.
773-459-1237.
Perfect, perfect. Well, Tiffany,
Thank you for
thank
having
you
me.
so much for coming on the show and joining us today. Your insight into therapy, mindset, and mindset shifts and business growth have been nothing short of powerful.
Thank you.
I know so many of our listeners will walk away from this conversation feeling so inspired to not only prioritize their mental wellness, but also embrace the power of transformation in your personal and professional lives. Healing truly is a business, and you've given us tools to approach it with intention and in purpose. And purpose, not in purpose, but with intention and purpose. To all of our listeners, remember, growth isn't just about what happens on the outside, it starts within. Whether you're on a journey of self discovery, building your business, or simply trying to navigate life challenges, having the right mindset and support system is everything. Tiffany reminded us today that investing in yourself is never a wasted investment. It's the key to long-term success. So, and make sure you tune in next week, because I'll be sitting down with my social media manager, Tarika Williams, and we'll be diving into how to leverage social media to grow your brand, build engagement, and market yourself like a pro. So, if you've been struggling with content strategy or just need to get unstuck, this is an episode you don't want to miss out on. And before I go, I have something special for all my first time homebuyers out there. I'm hosting a free paint and sip first time homebuyer seminar next. It's not a seminar, it's really a workshop. It's really going to be a good time. But it's next Saturday, March 22nd from 1 to 4 in Oak Park. It's an amazing opportunity to learn the home buying process in a fun, relaxed setting. Seats are limited, so head over to Evite and look for spring into home ownership. If you just type that in the Evite search box, the event will come up. I said, tickets are limited. I think we've got like 11 spots left. So if you or anyone you know is interested in homebuyer information, wants to come out, wants to paint, wants to sip, will actually be painting the Simpsons house. Please you come out, tell family, tell friends, anybody that's interested in home ownership, come on out. It's going to be a great time. So thank you for tuning in to the Inner Circle podcast, where real estate meets real life. I'm your host again, your homegirl Jillian. Until next time, stay smart, stay safe, and keep growing into the best version of you. Yay! That was great.